Okay, class, now we're going to move on to quadratics for today. And the standard form of a quadratic is y is equal to ax squared plus bx plus c, where a, b, and c can be numbers or coefficients. So orientation, the graph or the parabola, remember it's a parabola shape. So for orientation, the parabola, if the value of a is positive, then the parabola opens up. So the orientation is opens up. If a is negative, then the parabola opens down. So that is what I mean by orientation. Which way is it opening? To find the vertex of a quadratic equation, or a parabola I should say, from a quadratic formula, or a quadratic equation like I said, you want to use the formula, and this is derived from completing the square, but we're not going to do that right now. To get the x value, it's the opposite of the b value over 2 times a. And that's the x coordinate of the vertex. Then you plug in the equation to find y. So the vertex will look like this. It'll be the point, whatever you get for negative b over 2a, and then comma, and then whatever you get for sticking the negative b over 2a into your function. Okay? So we'll do some problems like that. Now, the axis of symmetry, since parabolas either open up or down, to cut it in half, you have to draw a vertical line. And the vertical line goes through the vertex to cut it in half. So the axis of symmetry is always the vertical line, and it's always whatever the x value is that you got from the vertex. So once you have your vertex, you have your axis of symmetry. Okay? So let's try a couple. Determine the vertex, axis of symmetry, and orientation of the following quadratics. Well, right away, you should be able to tell me that the orientation for this one, since the first number is a 1, by the way, we can write this out. A equals 1, B equals negative 2, C equals 2. Here we have A equals negative 1, B equals negative 2, and C equals 0 since there's no number. So the orientation for this one is up since A is positive. Orientation for this one, it would be down. To find the vertex, I have to say x is equal to opposite of b over 2a. So that's 2 over 2, which is 1. So that's the x coordinate of the vertex. Now you have to plug that in, plug the 1 into the function, and I get 1 squared minus 2 times 1 plus 2. So that would be 1 minus 2 is negative 1 plus 2 is 1. So that means that the vertex for this problem is at an x of 1 and a y of 1. And then finally, the axis of symmetry is just the line. If you look at the x coordinate of your vertex, it's x equals 1. It has to be a line though, so it has to be an equation. That's why it's, it has to be an equation. So over here we have to find the vertex. So first we're going to start with x equals opposite b again, which is negative 2, all over 2 times negative 1. So this becomes positive on top, positive 2 over, but this becomes negative 2. So you get a negative 1 for your x coordinate of the vertex. Then we find out what the y value, or the function value, is. So if I do negative 1 squared, which you have to square that first, minus 2 times negative 1. This becomes a positive 2. This is a positive 1, but then a negative, so negative 1. So positive 2 minus 1 is a positive 1. So the vertex is at x of negative 1, y of 1, which means the axis of symmetry We just take the x value and say x equals -1. Now, what's nice about the vertex, if you think about what a parabola looks like, if it opens up, so if it opens up, then the vertex is a min, right? It's the lowest point. And if it opens down, this would be then a max. So not only is the vertex helpful to find out the axis of symmetry, but it tells you basically the maximum or minimum value, which is important when you're dealing with word problems with this, because sometimes I ask you, where is the maximum? Well, if you know that you're just finding the vertex, you can do this process. So for these two, let's write out our letters first. A equals -1, B equals 10, and C equals -4. Here we have A equals 3, B equals -12, and C equals -1. So let's find our vertex. The first thing you have to do is find the x-coordinate, which is -b, which is -10 over 2 times A, which is -1. So we get -10 over -2, which is +5. So now you have to find f of 5. Oh, and by the way, we also have to say how this opens. This opens down. And if it opens down, that means that if it's opening down, that the vertex will be a maximum. So you could have told me that before you even did this problem. But let's find this value right now anyway. So we have negative, and then we put a 5 in squared plus 10 times 5 minus 4. So that's -25 plus 50 is 25 minus 4 is 21. So we get a vertex of 5, 21, and this would have to be a maximum, again, because it opens down. And then finally, the last problem for today, find our x-coordinate of the vertex first. So it's -b, which is -12, over 2 times a, which is 3. So it's +12 over 6, which is 2. Now we have to find the value of the y. So you stick 2 into the equation. So we have 4 times 3 is 12, minus 24 is -12, -13. So we get the vertex is at a point of 2, -13. Since a is positive, it opens up, and if it opens up, that means this is a minimum. Okay, so that's putting everything we kind of learned together with what a quadratic looks like, the max or the vertex, and that the fact that the vertex is either a max or a min. Okay, and I believe well, I shouldn't say this because it might change every year, but for 2017, this is what your quiz will be covering, just these first 3 lessons.